several times. So we're happy to have you here with us. So a couple things before we get started. Um, there were there was homework assignments that we put together last week. You should have received the files on those, and Bob will talk about that. If you didn't, you can feel free to email me, and my email address is robert.cohen, Cohen, at scorevolunteer.org. Score is one word. So robert.cohen at scorevolunteer.org. And let me know if you need the workshop papers that we sent out last week. You will also get papers from today, handouts that we're doing from after the session is done. You'll get the handouts that we're working on. So it'll be the next day or two before you get them. And Bob will probably talk about some things that you can do at home on your own. The bottom line is to get this going and start something that could turn into a full-blown business plan for you. So I'm going to start the slideshow. Feel free to chat with us as you go along. I'll look for questions and things like that we'll try to answer during the course of the presentation. If we can't answer them, we'll answer them at the end. So one way or the other, we'll try and get to all your questions and all of your chat. So we're talking today about business concepts, but before we do that, I'd just like to go through a slide or two about SCORE. You know that SCORE is probably the largest network of free volunteer mentoring services in the country. We've got about 240 chapters around the country with about 10,000 volunteers. And here in Cleveland, we've got somewhere in the vicinity of 90 volunteers that work with our clients. And we work with mentoring, and we work with workshops and sometimes boards of advisors to help small companies to grow. Our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. And we want to give everybody the materials and the education that they need to thrive as a small business. And you know that small businesses are a good portion of the economy of the United States. Every bit of 50% of the economy of the United States is small businesses. So small businesses create jobs, they create family wealth. Those are all such important things to keep our country going from an economic standpoint. So the better small businesses do, the better the country will do in general as it relates to the economy. And SCORE is part of the SBA. So all of the things, all the materials that we present are free. The SBA supports us a little bit, but we're also a partner of the SBA. They recommend SCORE for a lot of the people that are coming to them with SBA loans that need to have extra help getting those loans together or getting their business plans together. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So the one thing I did want to point out to you is our website. So as we talk about the material that we're presenting, there's so many opportunities where a mentor could help you to figure out what you need to do, how do you need to put your plans together, what finances you need, and things like that. So feel free to rely on our mentorship to help you. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is our website. It's live right now. And there's several things that you can do. First of all, there's so many resources on this website, templates, galleries. So if you're putting together a business plan, there is a business plan, actually multiple business plan templates. There are multiple financial templates that you can use, a lot of wonderful resources, and they are all free. All you need to do is log into score.org/Cleveland. But what I wanted to show you is when you're ready to request a mentor, if you just go to the request a local mentor panel right here, hopefully that'll come up quickly. There we go. And fill out this mentoring request form. One of the most important aspects of it is for you to describe what you need, what your questions are, what kind of help you need. That will help us to figure out how to assign a mentor to you. And a client intake coordinator will then take your application and assign it to a mentor that best fits the needs of what you're looking for in most cases. And it's based on our workload. It's also based on the experience of the mentor. We'll contact you generally within about 48 hours and set up appointments. So when you get this, follow up for sure, and we will assign a mentor for you. So I'm going to go back to the presentation, and I would like to introduce Bob Fedor. As you can see today, the first session was startup basics, and we talked about what it takes to be a good entrepreneur and some of the things that you need to consider going into becoming an entrepreneur or starting a business. Bob's going to take you through actually business concepts and the actual beginning of the meat and potatoes of what this session is all about in an entire 5-part series. So, Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you, and let's go from there. Just let me know how and when you want me to advance your slides.
Okay, thank you. Uh, there is a fairly large group today, so we cannot take 1 to 2 minutes per person to review the homework. But if anybody in the audience has a vision statement you'd like to read, one or two of you, why don't you, I guess, put it in the chat that you or raise your hand, and we'll give you the opportunity to share your vision statement.
Bob, while they're doing that, I am in the process of typing in my email address. So if you need any of the materials, feel free to send me an email and I'll make sure you get materials for the first session and essentially for the second session. Well, wait on the second session. They will be automatically sent to you
After this session.
after this. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm typing at the same time. Okay.
Okay.
So that's in. And let me see if we have anything else in the chat.
No, I think it was the same question. They want to know how to get the
Yeah.
email. No. Okay. Well, has anybody offered to give a vision statement?
Let's see.
I don't think so.
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, we hope you continue to work on your vision statement based on what you heard in the first session. If not, you could get it done after this session and incorporate it in the overall business plan. Now, the next slide is really the process that we're going to go through. It's our agenda. We're going to talk about capturing your dream and who have been successful entrepreneurs. And I'm going to talk about some of the local ones that I'm familiar with. We're going to go through about a feasibility plan for your business idea. We're going to talk more about Ann's Nursery, which was probably introduced to you last week, and why it's relevant to a business plan. In a new area here, we're going to talk about using artificial intelligence, AI, to assist you in developing your business plan. And frankly, I've been doing this talk probably over 10 years. And this is the first time that I think that we've introduced AI that now it's developed to the stage where it can save you a lot of time and energy in doing some of the mundane tasks in writing plans and gathering data. So it's an excellent opportunity to be very efficient. We'll talk about industry profiles, customer data, competitive data, and other resources for collecting data. I think the key point here is for this whole session, if you look at this list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times the word data is there. Your plan is only as good as the data that you generate, that you analyze, and that you understand. So it's the old statement, garbage in, garbage out. If you want a good plan, or if you want a good strategy, you have to have good data. And you can't sit down and write a plan until you get the data. So this session today really is about gathering data and understanding how to use it. Next slide, Bob. Oops. Did you go back one? Capture your dream. Here's some famous entrepreneurs. Obviously, Bill Gates, Walt Disney, Oprah, Sam Walton. These are incredibly successful people over the last 50 plus years who have created an incredible business environment in the U.S. and we all know of them firsthand. But I'd like to point out that some of our clients, on a relative basis, are extremely successful. I'll give you a couple of examples. A fellow by the name of Brian Ryback came to me about 3 years ago, beginning of COVID, and he wanted to open a bike shop. And he's now an independent. The bike shop is called Gear Up Velo, and it's doing great. Another client by the name of Jennifer Taggart wanted to do a takeout ice cream store and bakery in the Gordon Square area, and that business is doing great. Two successes. I encourage you to look at our website that Bob showed you, and in the About section, you could drop down and there's success stories, and there's over 20 local success stories. People in Northeastern Ohio, all colors, all genders, all kinds of businesses, have written their story and shared some insight on their success. And this is really what we want to do is we want you to capture your dream. And here's at least 20 examples of local people. So spend a little time studying that and see the variety of people and the variety of businesses that have been successfully started. And therefore, you want to go after your dream. And to do that, you first have to state your dream. And what a business plan does is it actually explains your dream. What is it that you want to accomplish? How are you going to do it? And why is it going to be successful? Now, to do that, we give you an example. This is like a case study. It's called Ann's Nursery. And we'll be talking more about that. But that'll be a great example to follow. Now, it's going to probably be more complex because as in a case study, it includes all kinds of different things that you may or may not need in your business, but it's comprehensive. And so the parts that you don't need, you don't use. And it takes you through the decision-making process to decide, are you going to go or not go with your business? That's the ultimate issue. You don't want to just start a business without thinking through, particularly how much time it's going to take, how much money is it going to take, and what are the odds to be successful. So the business plan will have the core information to create your story so you can present it to bankers, other investors, but perhaps even most important, that you could convince yourself that you can do this step by step and be successful. And it's prioritizing what has to be done and then explaining it in a logical manner. The next slide. Okay, Ann's Nursery, which again, unfortunately, not all of you apparently have gotten the email with it. You'll get it after this session. And it has a wide range of target market choices. Its financials are relatively complex because there's a building, there's inventory, they have to borrow money. It's a nursery. And we all understand sort of nurseries because they're all around. But a nursery is just a general term. You really got to get in specifics. Who are you going to sell to? What are you going to sell to them? How are you going to sell them? And then how are you going to make money doing this? Uh, that's why I strongly encourage you to read Ann's Nursery. Now, getting your business idea, uh, next slide. First thing you got to do is you have to define your market need. What need does my product or service fill? What problem does it solve? By the way, something we didn't state in the beginning of this, in the introduction, is that SCORE, many of our clients have nonprofits. That is a business, and it needs a business plan. If you're interested in nonprofits, and we have a lot of clients that are nonprofits, it really is a very similar scenario up to the point of paying taxes. There are differences in legal structure and board, etc., which we cover in other webinars. But this presentation is certainly usable for if you want to start a for-profit or a nonprofit business. Now, so again, defining your market need. What does my product or service fill? What problem does it solve? What are the features and benefits of my product or service? And which means, what is my competitive advantage? If you have competitive advantage, then that explaining your competitive advantage is what a business model is. And that is your work that you have to get done. What is your competitive advantage? Why can I be different? And why can I be successful? And then develop it into a business plan. Next slide. Now, obviously, one of the most important things is your personal background. How do my skills and experience fit with my idea? How risk tolerant am I? Now, that's very, very important because as Bob stated last week in session 1, at least 50% of you will fail in 5 years. And after you put a lot of time and probably money into it. So you've got to know that up front, that the failure rate is quite high. Then how can I modify my idea to fit my experience? Do I have the passion to sell this idea to others? Those are key questions. And Bob also talked about that you will have to do so many different things in it, not just financial, not just sales or marketing. You have to do everything. And so do you have the passion to do the things that basically you don't like to do, even because you have to do? Next slide. Now, one of the handouts you're going to get after this is a worksheet with a number of items which will be actually on the next slide that you have to develop first. Now, next slide, Bob. There it is. These are 5 areas incredibly important to analyze. And what we suggest you do is this is a great time to analyze it and score yourself on a 0 to 10, on these points. My product service is servicing an unmet need. Is it? Is it completely unique, a 10? Is it somewhat, a 5? Is it just a commodity that has a lot of competition? That may be a 1. My product or service could be expanded to gain additional customer groups. Well, you have to have insight and be optimistic. If those 2 things aren't present in your idea, you're running up against a very, very strong hard wall here. I know who my potential buyers are. Well, you may or may not whatever you do today, the whole idea of doing this uh, sheet today after this session is do it honestly. And by the time you finish the course and work with a mentor for a while, you redo it. And hopefully you move up your score. This by going through this list, you'll see where do you have to do work. Do you know who your potential buyers are? Do you have a clear value proposition for my potential buyers? Clear value proposition. I know what it will take to start my business. I know what it will take to run my business. I understand what it will take to obtain funding. Often this is not thought through, and SCORE has a number of mentors that could really help on this issue. I have a plan to fund my business. I'm ready to work hard to achieve my business goals. I presume most of you could put an 8 on that, an 8 to a 10, because that's why you've taken this webinar. And I understand the challenges ahead and have a plan to tackle them. Well, that's something you have to really do soul searching on. Do you really? Now, it's not, you may not today, but you want to investigate it. And so over the next few weeks and working with a mentor, you may come up to the point it's too much of a challenge and it's not worth going ahead. But these are the serious questions you got to ask yourself. Now, once you do that, now let's start getting into the data side of it. How do you go ahead and find the information you need? Well, first of all, you have to get data on your industry, on your customer, on your competitors, and market trends. And don't say you don't have any competitors, because Bob and I have been at this business a long time. I don't think I've ever seen a business that doesn't have a competitor. One way or the other, that there will be a competitor for that dollar, that sales that you want to get. Okay. Next slide. Now let's talk about a wonderful new tool that is available that is going to assist you tremendously in developing your business concepts and business plan. Artificial intelligence, it's interactive searching that augments human efforts. It does the tedious task. Two popular ones are ChatGPT and Bard. There's hundreds of other sites and more every day. Most are free, but you got to create a login. And what you do is and I'll give you some examples in the following slide. You write detailed and specific prompts, and you have a conversation with, in essence, a computer. You continue until you customize for your needs. However, and this is the big however, it is generic. You must validate all outputs to make sure it's really relevant to you. You cannot take it as gospel. The first example is to critique a business idea. I think you're all here with a business idea or a young business. A good site to use is validatorai.com. It gives an objective feedback on any business idea. An example prompt, and I had a client to do this. I want to start a takeout ice cream shop. Now, one of the differences, uniqueness, is takeout. There's not a lot of takeout ice cream shops. There's a lot, but there's certainly most ice cream shops you could sit down and eat there. Follow up with your specific questions. And this is a lady from the West Side. What competition exists on the West Side of Cleveland? What size store do I need? What will my upfront cost be? That's a huge issue. What will my gross margins be? The answers will be general. It gives you sort of a checklist to drill into. Another example is I want to create a marketing program for my idea. Okay, you could use Chat GDP. You say, I want a marketing program for a food truck. Well, it'll spit out a 15-point comprehensive plan. It emphasizes unique selling proposition, defines target customers, and outlines social media, website, and blog steps. Again, it gives you a step-by-step development of a marketing plan for a food truck. That's just an example. Another one is, next slide, is competitor analysis. It's extremely valuable to understand who your competition is and how are you going to survive against them. You could use AI to find competitor strengths and weaknesses. Both ChatGDP and Bard work very well. They could give you SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat analysis tables for your business. Again, results will be general, but they provide you guidance. So once you've got sort of define your business idea and you want to get into detail, you've got a general idea by doing some AI search, then you want to really get into your industry. You want to know the growth trends of your industry. How fast can a business in this industry expect to grow? Profitability. What kind of profit can you expect to make? What are the average margins in the industry? And we're going to show you how to get this data in the subsequent slides. Trends. What current and future trends are affecting the industry? Demographic trends, economic trends, global trends, political trends, and life cycle. And the next slide is going to illustrate the concept of business life cycle. Ideally, you want to choose an industry that's either in an early stage or it's in reinvention stage. Choosing an industry in the mature or declining stage is much harder to compete. The next slide, Bob. So here's a classic industry life cycle curve. Now I want to give the example. I think we all understand the automobile industry, or we certainly drive automobiles. I think just put a little historical perspective. Automobiles industry, certainly in the United States, well, in the world, basically started at the beginning of the 20th century, over 120 years ago. It's interesting that in the startup phase, there was three options. There was diesel, there was electric vehicles, and there were the spark ignition internal combustion that we generally know today. They all existed and at the beginning, but because of economics and particularly because of Henry Ford finding mass production for low cost, the spark ignition took over, rapid growth. It's occurred, that growth has been for over 100 years on a global basis, but it became mature. It became a commodity market. Now, what has happened to the automobile industry? It is being reinvented. Historically, in the early 100 years ago, were not good enough. Whoops. Bob, I've lost control. Okay. All right, just to finish up on industry life cycle, we apologize for the slide movement. You want
That
to
was my
be
fault.
you want to be either in the startup phase or the reinvention phase. You don't want to get into a business that's flat and not growing or it's declining. And this is your obligation to figure that out. I could guarantee you, if you want to go to investors or bankers, they're going to say, what's your market growth going to be? and they know they have all the data for certainly the bankers do for all the industries, and they know what the odds will be for your marketing success. Next slide. Now, so here's a few of the things that you could follow up on to define your business. First and most important, you have to know your what we call NAICS code, the North American Industry Classification System. You actually have to know that for your taxes. But we'll give you the link so you could check it. And this is absolutely essential to get your code and then look up similar businesses in that code. There's the next thing is the RMA, Risk Management Association has, and I'll give you an example of this later on. This is not easily available. You have to go to a library, particularly Cleveland Public Library. Usually the bankers have this. And what it does is it explains for all industries as a function of size, many different, from small size to large size, what are the financial characteristics of that business? And again, I'll show you an example. Your trade industries, and almost everybody has either a professional association or a trade group, usually national, that will have an incredible amount of data on your business. And again, as we talked about in the last slide, you have to study and find the growth potential. Where are you in the life cycle of your industry? And then trends. The internet is wonderful because you can constantly research the trends in your industry. What is going on? What are the new developments? Are things becoming automated? Or are there new laws that impact? They all go into the words trends. And you have to understand what's the latest scenario for your industry. Next slide. Here's the example, again, for Ann's Nursery. Her NAICS definitions, code 111421, nursery and tree production, and it describes, that's a generic classification, and she felt that was primarily her NAICS code. Now, your business could have more than one NAICS code. Many do, and you have to define, figure out which ones fit you. Then there's literally, there's tens of thousands of codes. So you really have to go through them. Next slide. Your target markets. By the way, next session is going to be on marketing, and Mike Lawson, our colleague, will be giving it, and he'll go into a great deal of detail on marketing. But who do you serve? Is it retail? Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Is it going to be, what's the number of the people that you'll be serving? The potential number of customers? What's the income level? What's the ability to pay? What demographics are you serving? What lifestyle? What habits? It's first you do it sort of qualitatively by saying, I'm going to target over 65 people who still like to hike and outdoor and have a lot of ability to buy gear. They have pretty good income. That's a qualitative. Then you got to put quantitative. Okay, how many are there and where are they? Are they in northeastern Ohio or are they in Utah or Florida? You've got to analyze how before you got to define that target market out there for your customers. Next. Data to collect and where to get it. Well, we talked about know your market. What are the demographics? What are the habits and patterns? Uh, Internet is incredible, and AI is part of the internet. Census data, and we'll give you websites in links to the census data, trade associations. There's a lot of civic community organizations that have data, and of course, library reference sections. And we'll give you an example on that. Actually, to research your competition, you have to understand what they offer. What are they? What price points do they have? What features? What annual sales? What's their size and profitability and their market strategies? One of the things that I had a client, we wanted to open a new pizza place because he had an oven that would do it instantaneously. And it was in a small community in Pennsylvania, and there was 20 other pizza shops nearby. And the first thing I said was, go visit the 20, find their price, their features, try to determine how many pizzas they sell, in a day, in a week, in a year. Try to determine their sales. And how did they market? You have to do this for all your local competition. The best way to do that is you go visit the competitor, or you study it at least online. Suppliers are wonderful to deal with because if you got a supplier servicing an industry, they know the industry inside and out and backward, and they want to tell you, they want to sell to you, so they'll help you. And as we mentioned, trade associations and this RMA that the library had. Another source for public companies to understand is D&B reports. Next slide.
Oops. All right.
So your competition, again, define their size, their product and service features. Who are their suppliers? What is the availability of the suppliers? Can you get what you need to do your business? Do they have the capacity to serve you? Are they close enough to you to serve you timely? Are they reliable? You're only as good as the people that you work with, that you depend on for your capabilities. And also you have to look at what's the business risk. What is the product longevity? What are the legal and environmental risks in your business? Product longevity is extremely important. There are very few businesses that never change. And probably the higher the technology business, the shorter the longevity, because the rate of change of upgrading the products is so very high. You have to understand, because do you need to plan for constant obsolescence of your current product, or do you think that it will last for at least a year, 2, 3 years? It depends on your product. That's a wide number of possibilities on longevity. Legal environmental, incredible. Nowadays, with the government regulations and out there, and it's not just federal government, could be state, could be local, could be your county. You have to understand what regulations will impact your business. And again, that takes a lot of legwork usually. You just don't want to be in a business that's vulnerable to a unilateral action by a government, a local or federal government, and that uh, can take away your market. There's many uh, examples of that. It's quite scary to know that uh, as free as our economy is, it's only as good as the legal protections you have. Uh, and in one thing, another thing beyond legal is the issue of subsidies. If you're going into a market, now I have a client that's doing electric vehicle chargers. Right now, there's a lot of money being poured into building charging throughout the country, uh, billions of dollars. And it's a lucrative market for those that are installing chargers right today. But it's quite possible if we have an economic downturn and a change in administration, they could eliminate the subsidies for these, and you could be caught. I personally was involved in a business years ago that was involved with the automobile industry, and the government changed the regulations, and the product I was working on for 3 years no longer was saleable. Uh, and it was Fortunately, it wasn't my money, it wasn't my business. I was working for a corporation, but it was certainly 3 years lost effort because of that. So you got to watch uh, what the legal and environmental risks are to your business. So now, in terms of researching your competition, the best thing to do is talk to your competition. Many of them will talk. And ideally, if you're in Cleveland, you can go to Columbus or Toledo, find a similar business and talk to them, because you won't be looked at as a direct competitor. Uh, and again, suppliers, if there's suppliers to your industry, to your business, they know inside out and backwards what's going on in the that business, and they'll know price points, and they'll know whether uh, you have a good chance of making a difference. And one thing you could do is ask competitors' customers, uh, because you want to get them. Those are your future customers. Somehow survey, talk to them. Uh, it's depends on your business, but those people, why are they buying from your competitor? You be a customer, you buy a product, you participate one way or the other, be a customer of your competitor, and you'll know a heck of a lot more about what's going on. Usually trade associations uh, uh, have the data in general on their industry, and who are the competitors, who are the suppliers, who's involved, who's the CEOs or the management of your competitors. Uh, there's all kinds of information you can get through your trade association. And of course, today, because of the internet, all your competitors will have websites, and you can see, evaluate them and their offerings and their strategies by just checking online. Now, in terms of demographics, if you the census, U.S. Census, has just got an incredible database. Uh, and if you're trying to target a certain area, let's say you want to sell to the high end in the uh, Akron area, you get a zip code, uh, and you look at the number of households there. You don't, if you're targeting the high end or you're targeting whatever in the low end, you want to make sure there's enough people there to target, and you could set up a marketing program to target that as a function of their income. Now, this data this is the example of an RMA data. This is for Ann's nursery. Again, this data, if you add a NASIX code and you go to your reference librarian, particularly down in Cleveland Public Library, they have this. Your banker, many bankers have this data that they can access, and it's updated every year. And what this data, and I'm not trying to have an eye test for you. What it does is every industry is categorized, and on the right, it's from small size to large size. And then it'll give, okay, how much inventory do I need? What's typical debt level? What's a typical sales? What's a typical operating expense? What's typical profit? And just to, most people jump to the bottom line. Well, what kind of profit can I get? Well, if you're a nursery business, the best you'll see, and on the left is historic, they're in the 3% on the bottom. And on the right, you'll see, a little over 4. And then it drops if you grow a little bit, only 1.2%. And then 2, under 3, around 4. But the bottom line is that industry, no matter how big you are, 4% profit is what to be expected in general. That doesn't mean that everybody gets 4. Some may make 8 and some may go bankrupt. But that's sort of the average. But you're not going to get very high margins because competition is going to force it into those kind of numbers. And in order to even make 4%, you're going to have so much inventory, so much assets that you have to borrow or invest. This is what your balance sheet looks like. Now the nursery is an example of a bit of a profitable business, 4%, let's say. Grocery stores would be less than that, probably down around 1%. There's a lot of high-tech businesses that are 30, 40% profitable. But again, remember what I said was high-tech will have a short product longevity, and you have to continue to upgrade it. So they need a lot of money in R&D and product development and sales and marketing. So each industry has its own characteristic profitability and financial balance sheet. Now, another data source, again, the Census Bureau has it. Each community, you could find out, this is actually DC, we could do it for Cleveland, the employment status, how many people are in the labor force, how many children, females, this is just one page of many pages on data. So when you decide who you're targeting and what community you're targeting, take a look at what the Census Bureau has so you could see, this is essential when you're targeting, doing your marketing and sales plan. Next slide. Now, we talked about getting this data. Now, NASIX, you go to the Census Bureau. There's the link for that. American Community Survey, that's sort of the demographics, the labor statistics for any city or town. The SBA has a huge amount of data. The Bureau of Economic Analysis does. The SEC for public companies. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And then finally, SCORE, our website that Bob showed you at the beginning. There's a huge amount of templates and recorded webinars. We record all our webinars, at least going back a year. For an example is, just yesterday, or 2 days ago, we had a webinar with the Cleveland Public Library on generating data. That whole webinar is available to you on our website. almost any question of background information, you'll probably find an example in our recorded webinars. Next slide. Now, I mentioned that just 2 days ago, we had the Cleveland Public Library, one of our partners, do a webinar on use of the reference library and how to get do your searches for information. I strongly advise you to work with your local business librarian. Cleveland, downtown Cleveland, is an exceptional library, one of the best in the country for that. But many of the suburban ones, I'm familiar with Westlake and Beechwood. They do a great job. And many of SCORE clients, we use reference librarians. There's a Data Axle is a new, it used to be called Reference USA. It's a great reference for a tremendous amount of data. Again, the libraries have this. Trade industry publications, some are in the library, some you have to reach out to the specific trade industry organization. Inc. magazine's good. But, one of your best friends in getting data will be your local librarian. They're there. They're paid by the public, by the taxpayers. They love to be challenged and give them an opportunity to be the human face of your data collection, as opposed to AI being the computer face of your data collection. You put it all together and maybe you'll have a business plan. Next slide. Okay, if this was done in person, we would try to get you to discuss your status of your data collection and your pricing strategy, product features, etc. With the number of people on this call, we obviously can't do this in this webinar form, but what we would encourage you, if you know somebody else taking this webinar, sit down with them and talk about what did you learn, how did you look through these various points, and where are you in your data gathering. Hopefully you have a SCORE mentor and you can do the homework. There is you'll be sent a worksheet on this, on data collection, on competitive analysis. And so if you do the data sheet on competitive analysis, and you do the data sheet that we start out in front on the business plan feasibility, those 10 questions and how you rank yourself, that and work with a mentor, that'll tell you where you are today. And then as you go through the detailed marketing plan in the next session, and then the financial plan, and then the funding plan, the next 3 sessions of this series, then you can pull it all together, again, with your mentor, and you should have the information to give you a sense, is this business worth doing? Do we need more, a different strategy? Do we have to reassess? But this is a process. Just remember, most successful entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs who may fail once, twice, 3 times before they are successful. Some are successful the first time. But it's a heck of a lot easier when you've done the work up front and you understand what you must do and what you're confronting. Bob, I think that's pretty much it. Right.
Yeah.
Next session is Mike Lawson. He's a marketing expert. Bob, are you going to be host for that too?
I'm not sure, Bob. I have to check my calendar and see if I'm scheduled for that. Yeah.
And then Richard
today.
Brooks on the financial, and Dan Toll and myself on funding. And we'll wrap that up early in February. these 5 sessions. And hopefully by the time you're through that, you can have a solid grasp on what you're trying to do and minimize the uncertainties.
Excellent. I have a couple questions that have come in. So if you want to stay on, you can. If you
Sure.
need to drop, you can drop, folks. And you know, if you have any other questions, by all means, drop them in the chat, and we'll try and answer as much as we can. So, you know, one thing with AI is, and Bob mentioned it before, and I've gotten a couple questions on it. It gives you a fairly general, I mean, you can drill down by asking the right kinds of questions and get specific, but you're not going to get real specific data like Bob was talking about. There are data sources out there that supply data that you have to pay for. You know, and some of them, and they're good. You know, they're online. You can look for them. And the problem is that everybody's got a free startup, but the free startup never gives you what you want, and so that's how they rope you into paying for it. So the best data sources are through the library. Cuyahoga County Library has got a great one as well. Some of these you can sit home and work on. If you got a library card, you go into whatever library you're associated with and sign up for some of that data. They pay for those databases, so you can kind of piggyback on what they have. And again, go back to the librarians because they know which data sources to use for the specifics that you're looking for. So that's what I wanted to say on that. Let's see what else have I got. I think I heard you say that with the business, make sure that you're not in a high demand, and um, and if it is, there needs to be a differentiating factor or high demand for the product. Um, is It's not possible, but it's something to think about. Bob, have you got a comment maybe on that?
No, I don't understand the context that
Yeah,
much.
I think maybe you misunderstood that when we talk about high demand, you know, there are plenty of high demand businesses out there. But yeah, if you're going to enter into a high demand, then you want to be able to differentiate yourself. A couple things to think about. One of which is, you know, barriers to entry. The lower the barrier to entry, the more competition you're going to have. So, for instance, if you have a camera and you decide to call yourself a photographer, there are a lot of photographers out there, and that's going to be hugely competitive, but it's not costly to get into per se. On the other hand, you know, if you've got an Amazon, try to think about how it would take you to get into an Amazon these days, and the cost of the barrier to entry is so high cost that, you know, unless you had billions of dollars right now, you could not start that business. So I gave you two opposite ends of the perspective. But you know, high demand businesses are fine if you've got a unique way of approaching it. Let's see what else I've got. Um, if your product is still in testing phase and not ready for sale, the best time to do business plan. This is the best time to do business planning, even if there are no financial sales yet. So I guess that's an if your product is still in.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, you should do the business plan or the data generation and market research before you even spend a lot of time with your product development. I mean, this standard corporate process for product development or business development, you have to justify it uh, based on your research, market research, and technology research before you get into spending money on it. Because none of these things are easy. It takes much time and money. And I think the real value of this series that we're presenting and working with Score Mentor is we want to save you time and money. One of the best, this may sound counterintuitive, but one of the best things that might come out is that you decide not to do a business before you spend a lot of time and money on it
Yeah,
because it wasn't really a well thought out concept.
Yeah. And for this in particular, product development, but for almost any business, there's no reason why you couldn't do discovery with customers or potential customers to find out what they think of either your product or your service, or any portion of what you're doing in business. So if you can find 10 or 15 people that you can talk to and come up with 10 to 20, 25 questions that you want to understand and learn about what they think of either your business, your product, or things that you're developing, that's not a bad way to do research.
And that also will, it mitigate against you falling in love with a concept or a business, and you invest a lot of excuse me, time and money, but it really isn't commercially viable, or it's not enough to generate what you want out of it. That is a very common problem. People fall in love with their idea, and it just all ideas don't succeed. And the more work you can do up front, the better off you are.
Agree. Yeah, yeah. And the more nimble you are as you do it, and that's also going to be important. So here's another question. This, I think, is to clarify what we had talked about before. The business I'm going into is starting to become pretty prevalent. I know it's cost effective because the market's beginning to have an appetite for the concept, but I get nervous about the competition. And Bob, I don't know if you want to comment on that. You know,
Well, I mean, you have to study the competition, and you got to be realistic on what is your capability, what are your resources to compete against your competition. If you have a good idea and you come out with it, you have to think through what is your competition going to do about your idea? How do they react? And one of the things, the dangers is one of the most dangerous things. I'm going to go in, I'm going to buy a market, I'm going to price underneath a market. That rarely works unless you have a very, very significant 30 or 40% advantage in price. Going in like 10% below, you're going to build a business because I'm going to be 10% below my competitors. You know what's going to happen? Your competitors will drop price a little bit and force you out, and then they raise prices over time. It's a dangerous, dangerous thing.
yeah, yeah. When you have a lot of competitors, you need to figure out, some sort of a competitive fort that you can put around your idea. So what is it that you can do that's unique that locks them out, or other things like that. I have another one that's similar. I have an idea for enhancement of an already established company. What's the best way to present? And we can't get into that real detail, but we can maybe give you some overview. What's the best way to present it to them, and how to protect my idea from big companies stealing my idea. One thing I will say, that if you've got a good idea, people are going to knock it off. There's no doubt. In some way or another, if your idea is working and working well, somebody's going to figure out a way to knock it off.
Well, the first thing you could do, and is it's standard practice. You tell people in general, yeah, I'd like to talk to you about it, but they'd have to sign an agreement. You need a legal agreement with them that it's your idea and they can't run with it, and they're going to respect your confidentiality on that agreement. All that said is you need a lawyer. We have a couple attorneys in SCORE that can assist you, but the bottom line, if you have something valuable, you have to protect it. You cannot expose it. And we have other webinars that talk about patentability or trademark, et cetera, like that, how to protect your intellectual property. But as soon as you lay it out, it's not yours anymore, and it'll be copied. So you have to do the upfront. You have to prepare for that kind of protection.
Yeah. So a non-disclosure agreement is what Bob's talking about. And there are other confidentiality type agreements as well. I am not seeing anything else. Last call for comments or questions. A couple. Um, any tips on having larger competitors and just starting out? Any advantage on being smaller and able to be more flexible than the larger guys?
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Sometimes,
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
sometimes it's not the big that eat the small. It's the agile that
Yeah,
outrun the big ones.
yeah.
So that's a possibility.
But
Somebody said,
never underestimate the competition's ability to smack you.
"Oh yeah,
You,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah."
know, and it really depends on what kind of product, what kind of market you're in. But if it's a valuable scenario, the competition's going to react and try to eliminate you.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. We've talked a lot about competition today, and in the marketing session, they'll talk about it as well. It is so important, to quote Michael Corleone, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah.
And I look at competition that way as well. Bob
There's
just
another question just came in, Bob,
Yeah, yeah.
about memory.
So one quick thing, somebody complimented the session, Bob. That was great, fantastic session. Thank you. Let me look at. We just got. It looks like 5 new ones. Um,
There's something about mentoring.
yeah, I have a meeting with a SCORE mentor on Monday. But did you say mentors are set up according to the idea and business plan? No, not necessarily. We try to match you up with somebody that is as close to what you're looking for as we can. It's not always possible, but most of our mentors are pretty good generalists and can help you in various aspects, particularly with startup. But one of the things that we do, I think that's unique. And remember, I told you we've got 10,000 volunteers throughout the country and 90 in Cleveland. Somebody in Cleveland has probably got experience in what you're looking for. And if the mentor does not, they will call in what we call a co-mentor. Bob and I co-mentor all the time, and I co-mentor with other people as well. And I bring co-mentors in. In fact, this afternoon, I'm working with somebody that's a food distributor, and I'm a marketing person. I don't know anything about food distribution, but I'm bringing 2 more people in that are mentors in SCORE that have that experience. And that's for us as mentors to quarterback the needs that you need. So we bring in the right people. Let's see. The industry for my product is a $25 billion industry yearly. Of course, I'm small. Do I compare my pricing to the marketing to theirs? That's a good question, by the way, and it's the perpetual, question. You want to answer that, Bob?
Well, of course, you have to know their pricing. And you have to, if yours is different, you have to determine is it viable?
Yep.
Can
Great.
you survive? Can you survive knowing their price? And don't forget what I said earlier. Trying to buy into a market is a very dangerous thing.
Yep.
You
I
need to
agree.
have you need to have characteristics of your product or service that's uh, unique. Now, one of the things big markets may not have is local capability, and you know, a nice boutique bakery, a bakery industry could be 25 billion, but I like to walk and get my fresh daily croissants down the street, you know. So, and I could price my croissants twice of what they'll have in a grocery store at Heinen's because it's hot, fresh, and local. So it just depends, and that's take advantage of the SCORE mentors and our experience. We've been at this a long, long time. Uh, Many different clients, all matters, and as I said before, including nonprofits. And we try to give you free the value of our experience, and we try to find out somebody that can answer your specific question through our resources. And it may not just be SCORE. We have connections with a lot of other partners in the northeastern Ohio and throughout the country that have capabilities, and particularly when it comes to funding your business. We can help you, assist you with other partners.
Yeah, yeah. A couple things. I think next week we'll talk a little bit about pricing strategy, but just to a certain point. But you need to write your pricing strategy out and think it through and take a look at how you're going to price. Are you, depending on your market, are you going to be the high price provider, the middle price provider, the low price provider? And what are the implications of any of those? People will pay higher prices for things that they really want. So, how do you fit that? Are you a commodity? So if you think about, AT&T and some of the other um, um, providers, utility providers, they compete only on price alone. So, do you want to do that? That's not a great way to do that. But if you got value to your product or your service, then you can get the pricing for it. But you got to also see where you fit with what your competitors are doing. That's just kind
Yeah.
of general and very
Well,
simplistic.
I'll go back to, I think, one of our initial slides. What is your uniqueness? And if your answer is, I'm not very unique, well, you got to really think hard. Why are you doing this? If you don't give the customers something different.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did get a question about how to keep your competitors close. And I don't mean in terms of being friendly. What I do mean is to understand them very, very well, to constantly look at what they're doing, to learn from them. Sometimes they'll come up with an idea that you might want to knock off yourself, but also to understand what's good about what they do. And that's what Bob was talking about, a SWOT analysis, and that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You should do that not only with yourself, but your competitors. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Okay. Their weaknesses might be something that you can take advantage of, and that could become an opportunity for you. So, that's what I mean by keeping your competitor close. Always look at your competitor, look at their pricing, look at how they've grown, look at who their employees are, look at how they sell on the web, if that's how they're doing it. But there's so many ways of doing that. That's kind of what I meant by that.
Great questions.
Yeah, it is. Um,
Thank you.
do we offer business advice outside of the U.S.? SCORE does not offer business, although I have from time to time. I've gotten people from Australia sitting in on our workshops. All that stuff's available. We don't necessarily mentor per se outside the U.S. I don't know if there are other organizations anywhere else that do what we do, but any of the information that we have on our website is available, and it's free to anybody that can log in.
Right.
And let's see. I think that maybe it. My product must be unique, like a niche. What will be different? What will be different? Okay. So if you have a niche product, you're still, from a competitive standpoint, even though it stands out and it's different and separate than other products within that industry, you still need to think about any of those organizations, competitors, as competitors in your industry. So, being in a small niche and taking advantage of that is a great way to make money and have a nice business. But you got to make sure you can protect that, and that anybody that is in that industry potentially could do the same thing.
Yeah, just remember, a lot of larger companies are waiting for small companies to develop a market, a new product or new service, and then they jump in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Should I license or secure business name, website, etc., before launching? What you will do though, when you first of all, you'll register with the state, which is, depending on what type, we went into that last week, what type of business entity you're going to have. But one way or another, you'll register with the state. You also have to look up the name, and you have to make sure that that name has not been taken by somebody else. And then you can register that name, and that'll be unique as it relates to your website and things like that. Your domain name, that's all unique, and typically somebody shouldn't be able to steal that. But um, if you want to, you can go into some of our past webinars on legal issues, and
Yeah,
we've
intellectual
actually got.
property, how to protect them, right?
Yeah, yeah. So if you've got something besides what you just stated here, other intellectual property, we talk about ways that you can protect that as well. So I
Now,
think we.
if you're if I took the question is I'm interested in licensing my product or my business, uh, that that's a fairly complex question. Usually, you can't license anything successfully unless it's a successful product, at least on a local basis. Uh, but again, we have mentors that really understand that area and can work with you.
Okay. So somebody needs the Latoya, it looks like you need the first session. Send me an email. I put my email address in the chat early on. Again, it's robert.cohen at scorevolunteer.org, and I'll make sure you get what you need. I think that's it, Bob.
Well, thank you all.
Great job.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.